All right. So what we are going to do today is we're going to go over the pen tool. This is a pretty critical piece to understanding how Illustrator works. Up until this point, what we've been doing is creating different types of closed shapes. We've been using the shape tools. So we've been using like the ellipse, the rectangle, the star, the polygon to create our shapes. All of those have been closed shapes. Now what we're going to do is learn how to use the pen tool. The pen tool is going to allow us to create our own anchor points, and we can determine whether or not that shape is going to be an open shape or a closed shape, depending on how we draw it. So first, we need to learn some anatomy. Once we learn the anatomy of what makes an actual path, we can move forward from there and actually start drawing with stuff. The technical term for what we're drawing when we use the pen tool is called a Bezier curve. That is how a vector graphic is formed, right? So we've got these points, and then that mathematical format is going to be used to connect the dots, and that's what allows that image to be scalable. So there are two types of points that we can create. The first ones are going to be what are called smooth points and corner points. So let me pull up this piece here and unlock this real fast and turn these on. So we've got 2 points. Let's take a look at them here. We've got smooth and we've got corner. We're going to add a couple pieces to these in just a second, but get those 2 points written in the sheet that's in front of you, just so you know how to identify them. They have very distinguishing features between the two of them. The smooth point has what are called handles that come off of the anchor point. The handles are these little pieces that go to the left and the right. So I draw a little arrow to those on your piece of paper. And just to note that that is a direction handle. And all smooth points will have direction handles that go with them. That direction handle controls the amount of arc that you see on each segment. That handle is also always going to be on the back side of the arc that is being created. And then we've got the corner point there to the right. So I'm going to back this up a little bit, pull this down, and let you guys see the rest of what I have written down. So I've got smooth points are where anchor points connect 2 line segments as a continuous curve. They also have handles that go with them. I'd add that into there. And then corner points are where a path abruptly changes directions. You notice that corner point there has no handles that come off of it, thus creating a nice sharp angle change. We use both of these when drawing. You just have to know when to use each one, and that's what we're going to hopefully learn today. No.
I agree.
Give you guys a couple seconds to write this down, and then we'll move on.
Don't ever give me this hard of a project again. I think it was just because of the shapes. That's fine.
So any questions currently about what we see? Our goal is to draw the smoothest shape possible. And generally, to get the smoothest shape, we want to have the fewest points possible when drawing as well, and know how and when to use the different types of points. Before we actually start drawing, we're going to talk about the bottom piece. I'm going to lower the window here and allow you guys to see what I've written in, and then I'll explain the different parts of the line segment and how they come together and allow us to function in Illustrator. Not it either. Good luck.
Ooh.
All right, so if we kind of take a look here, A is considered an anchor point. So when I click with the cursor and I've got the pen tool up, I create an anchor point. An anchor point can either, like we said, be smooth or it can be a corner point depending on how we click. But if we want to go back and modify that, we need to understand what's actually selected and what's not selected. So A is a representation of an unselected anchor point. The way we know that's unselected is that it only has a stroke on it. It does not have a fill, as if you look at letter C there. Letter C is a solid anchor point, black all the way through. That represents a point that is currently being selected using the direct select tool. So that kind of answered C as well. So A is an unselected anchor point. C is a selected anchor point. B would be what is considered a segment. And that's the line that is between two anchor points. That's considered a segment. And there's another segment. If we kind of look over to the side right here, that would be considered another one. We've got D. D is a direction handle. Like we said earlier, the handle is always going to be on the back side of the arc that is being formed. Let's look at this line as like we're reading a book, going from left to right as well. So if I were to be drawing this handle, D and E, is being pulled in the direction of travel, right? So that is what creates this arc. So if I take a look at this one here, this handle is controlling that segment of line. And if I were to just continue on with that line and not look at the one that is the second segment, that path would probably continue right along that handle line is kind of what I like to visualize a little bit. So this arc would just continue on and it would go through here. And that's kind of the direction I need to pull my handle in. And we're always moving forward as well. We're never going to have a handle that's going in the wrong direction. All right, we're always moving forward. So when we make handles, they've got to go in the direction of travel. We've got to be moving forward. And then we've got E, which is the direction point. So if I wanted to come back and modify this post creating the shape, I could click on that point with my direct select tool and pull on it. I could remove it. I could turn it into a corner point right now at this point. I can't turn it back into a smooth because it is already a smooth point. But those are some things that we need to know. Down below are just some quick pictures of icons that are going to pop up when using the pen tool. Some very important ones to note. This is the normal pen tool. You do have options. If we look at our pen tool over here, you've got regular pen tool, add anchor point, delete, and the anchor point tool. We generally just want to have the pen tool up. We'll be using the direct select to pretty much do everything else. These little pieces over here are important though. The X, the O, and that backslash there, forward slash, are pretty critical to understanding how to work with the pen tool when it's active. If I get my pen tool up, get on a working layer here really quick, you can see I've got a little X being made there. If I click once, I've just created my first anchor point. I did not click and drag, I've just clicked once. That has created an anchor point. Out from that comes the rubber band. The rubber band is going to be a temporary preview of what your potential line would look like if you ended up clicking where the mouse is currently sitting. So I'd be creating a straight line segment right now using corner points because I have not pulled anything yet. So if I come in here and I click, but then this time I pull, I'm pulling down, you can see I've created two handles, and I go back home. When I get close to my original start point, you'll see that the cursor now has changed over, and there's a little circle icon next to it. That indicates that I'm going to be creating a closed shape. If I think I'm close, like right here, I'm not creating a closed shape, right? That is an open shape. There is a tiny little gap there, and that is not what we are trying to do. We are trying to create closed shapes as we go along. So I'll click here. And I've just created a closed shape. Pretty awesome. Let me zoom out for you. What we are going to do now, I'm going to give your computer back to you. I would like you to go ahead and you are going to create an ellipse. Let me zoom out real quick. Control A. Oops. Delete those. I want you to create an ellipse using your circle tool. All right, perfect circle for me. And we're going to start to play with different types of points and identify that. We're going to move on to the second handout that I gave to you. You got a couple of seconds to get that done. Go ahead and do that, please. Print it. Show it to her. All right, taking your computer back over. So if we're looking at that sheet, we have a couple things we need to be aware of. We're going to talk about anchor points real quick. So if I take my direct select tool, well, let's go back to the original, the selection tool first. If I click on that shape, we now have it selected as an object. The way that we can tell is that there is a bounding box that goes around the outside of it, right? We see that square. That square represents our transform commands, gives us the ability to resize it and rotate it if we wanted to. But we don't want that right now. We want to get in there and we want to talk about anchor points really quick. So we are going to click on the direct select tool. And now what we're going to do is select this top anchor point. You can see by clicking on that top anchor point with our direct select tool, I clicked once. I've got a couple sets of handles that show up. It gives me both the handles to the left and the right, and it also gives me the next set of segments. So I could click on this segment and pull if I wanted to. I can do this one as well. And you can see how it's adjusting the handles as we go along. But what we really want to do is talk about a specific point. If I take a look and I zoom in, I have one point that is currently blue. The other ones are white. Those means that it's not selected. I've got my active anchor point right there in the middle. We're going to take this round, our corner point, our smooth point, and we're going to turn it into a corner point. So what we're going to do is go to the top of our control bar, and up here, we've got a convert option. We can make it a corner, or we can make it convert to smooth. We're going to make it into a corner. We do that, and now you can see our handles have disappeared. We also now have the option of putting a radius onto it because it is a corner point. So with that being said, I'm going to give your computer back to you. I'd like you to go ahead and modify that top point and turn it into a raindrop for me, right? So if I back up and I take this point and then I click on it and pull, I have just created myself a fat raindrop for this rainy day that we have today. Go for it. Go ahead and create yourself a raindrop. Take that top point, select it with your direct select tool. Direct select tool, please. You got to get your white arrow up. Click on that point. Go modify it. Any questions about that? All right, it looks like everybody's doing it pretty successfully. We're going to move on to the next little piece. Okay, we've done that. Now we've converted our points here. We're going to start to draw a little bit and kind of use this pen tool to create some different pieces here. I'm going to delete that shape. If I come over and grab my pen tool, remember there's a couple different ways we can make this work. We can click once to create a static point, or we can click and pull and we can create a smooth point. So I'm going to click once. You'll notice if I add the modifier key right now, so I've clicked and I've let go and I've got 1 point. I've got that rubber band that's coming off that's going to show me a preview of what my potential line could look like. If I hold the shift key now on the keyboard, it has gone ahead and just made that into a straight line that is on either the 0, the 90, or the 45 degree mark. That's something important to write down. Adding the shift key will create a line on the 0, the 90, or the 45. So right now it's on the 0. If I bring it down, I'll go to the 45, and you can kind of see it works its way around the degree marks. Once I've done that, I'm going to hold shift again, go down, and then I'm going to go back home and create myself a right triangle. I don't need to hold shift on this third line because if I get next to the start point, I should get the little O symbol, and it will allow me to create a closed shape. So I've just created myself a perfect 90-degree triangle on my screen. I'm going to give the computer back to you. Go ahead and try creating that, please. Make sure you're holding shift for at least 2 of the lines.
Send to go with it.
Okay.
Go with it.
We need to download all these then.
All of them and then make them
On
the real
update.
picture.
Yep.
So what do I do? Just license it?
Yes. And you'll have to save them to the folder. Anybody need help creating a nice right triangle? Okay. Well, that was fun. So the next thing we're going to do is learn how to draw some straight lines. That is going to be one of our activities. So we're going to take our triangle. We're going to move it up to the corner. Straight lines. Instead of using the line tool, say you wanted to just create some lines based off of your pen tool, it is easy to do. So if I come in here, I'm going to click once. If I come over and hold shift to create another straight line, but I let go. I want to disconnect now. I don't want to be connected to that line. There are 2 ways to potentially disconnect from that. I could come back over here, select another tool, and then that would disconnect me. So if I get the move tool, it's gone. I no longer have the rubber band, and I can move my piece. Well, if that's not really what I want to do, I can let's delete that. Try this again. A faster way, a more effective way, is to just hold the control key on your keyboard. Your cursor will switch over, if you notice, to, oops, sorry. Oh man, I disconnected. All right. You see how my cursor changes from my pen tool when I hold control over to the direct select tool? It's the last tool I used, but that will allow me just to click on the screen once. And then I have disconnected from my line and I'm back into my pen tool right away. Because if I wanted to go ahead and just get a series of lines made really fast, hold control again, and I'm able to just click on my screen and work my way down and make some straight lines. That'll be useful in just a second here. So I'm going to give your computer back to you, try to make a couple lines, and then use the control key to disconnect from your line and draw a few more.
Guess who I saw on Saturday?
Hmm.
Alyssa.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she was at the Apple Orchard.
Mm.
Looks the same.
Oh, yeah. Anybody need help? Yes, sir. What happened? I don't know. Your control zero. All right, that looks good. All right, what time we have? We have plenty of time. So, the next point on our sheet here is to use the add anchor point. So we're going to play with that really fast. If I come in here, I select this as a line segment, or just select it as an object. You can see I had a bounding box around it again. Pick up my direct select tool. I no longer have that. I have the ability to click on a point. I could change it. But what if I needed to have a second point, a third point in the middle of this line? I could use what's called the add anchor point tool. So I can come in, change my tool over in the pen toolbox to the add anchor point. Click on that. You'll notice that it has a plus symbol next to it. If I zoom in, you guys can probably see the tool at this point. It's got a little plus symbol, so it means I'm going to add something to it. If I get next to the line and anywhere on top of it, I click. I have just created another anchor point, and I can now switch back over, potentially back to my direct select tool. If I click on that point to activate it, I could pull down, and I've just created a third point inside of there. So let's go ahead. I want you to do this, and then we're going to learn how to connect back up to this and draw that into a triangle. Go ahead and add another point, pull it down, create the major portion of our triangle.
So I just save this for you now.
Yeah, just save it to the drive, and we should be good to go. Everything's on the flash drive? All right. Who needs help?
No, I never. I just slept too late. I slept till like an hour past my hour. I woke up and my dad took me to school and I started walking to school.
Okay. All right, we've got this point. If I take it, currently it's got a white fill on it, but if I switch this over and we zoom in on this line a little bit, we'll notice that we do not have a closed shape because the black stroke does not continue on. We could also go Control Y and take a look at it and notice that there's no top line being drawn. So we need to connect back up to this line and make it into a closed shape. So I'm going to come back and get my regular pen tool. If I get next to one of the points, you'll notice that I get a slash on my cursor. That slash means that I'm going to join an existing line. So I'll click on that. And if I go over to the other side, to the other point, that'll be the last point that's there. You'll see I get the circle. That just now made this into a closed shape. And now you can see that the black line is continuous with it. And I can move it around and resize it. Or to hold the shift key, I can scale it proportionately. And if I throw the modifier Alt in there when I've got it selected as an object, remember I can make a duplicate of it really fast and start working on different types of designs. So I'm going to give the computer back to you. Go ahead and make that into a closed shape, please. And then add some color into it and make sure it has a stroke on it so that I know that you've completed it. Who needs help? Ooh, you got a lot of points on that line. So every time you use all the negative points you get in, all right. I think most of us have successfully completed our triangle. I'd like you to go ahead right now, grab your ellipse tool, make me a perfect circle. Grab your ellipse tool, make a perfect circle. Give it a fill. Make sure you've got color in there so we can see some stuff take place. We're going to change over our tool to the delete anchor point tool. So go to your toolbox, go to delete anchor point tool, and we are going to delete one of the side points, either the left or the right. I don't care which one you do, but we're going to delete one of the points of the circle. So you should end up with this kind of weird half kind of circle. I'm going to just show you what you should end up with. It should look something like this. What you're going to do is come back and you're going to take our direct select tool. We're going to activate the top point and we are going to modify its shape. We're going to take this handle and we're going to throw the Alt key in. Oops, why didn't that work? If I hold the Alt key and I click on the directional handle, and I pull down, I've just created myself a split point. So it's half smooth, half corner, essentially. I come down and click on the bottom point. So I activate it. I hold the Alt key, click on the directional handle, and pull up. If I hold Shift, it'll go on that 90. And I've just created a half circle. Does anybody know where I could have done this? What the last project we did? When we had to do the Polaroid thing, right? I could have come in here and duplicate this now, and I could maybe rotate it. Would be a potentially way to deal with that, right? I could change the color. Now I've got my split thing going on. That would be potentially a workaround for it, or you could use the divide tool. But again, we are going to take that half circle that we created. That was kind of lumpy. Get your direct select tool. Click on one point to activate it. Hold the Alt key. Click on the directional handle. Drag down. If you hold Shift, it'll go straight. Then you can do the same one for the other one, and you'll create a nice straight side. So I'm going to give the computer back to you. Give that a try. This will be the last piece we do today. And I'll try to answer some questions. We are going to save this to our iDrive. We're going to save it as pen tool practice. And we'll pick it back up here tomorrow. So we need this document. We're going to add some more stuff to it and play with some of the existing stuff that we've already got on there. So go ahead and do that. and I'll be walking around. When you have it done, show it to me, and then I'll let you log off.